We are now going to look at the Indian equivalent of SpaceX, a company called Skyroot Aerospace. I see Pawan is already queued up, and so I think we can plunge right into that session. Pawan, thank you so much for making time for us and this late in the day. But I assume that you perhaps don't sleep much and you're used to working odd hours, so that works to our advantage. Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Ravi. Thank you.
First thing, of course, everybody wants to know why does someone growing up in India aspire to get into space exploration? I thought that was not allowed. I thought you could only dream about becoming an engineer or a doctor or a chartered accountant. But how did you get this bug to be a space in that industry, and also how to become to be an entrepreneur in that space? If I can.
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
Yeah. Hope I'm audible. Yeah. So thanks, Ravi, first of all, for having me. And firstly, I studied mechanical engineering at IIT Kharagpur, and I'm very passionate about machines, building machines. And during my college, I thought that the most challenging machine ever built by humans is a rocket, and that's when I had the fascination for space, rockets, and also for ISRO in India, which is doing really well at that time. Building PSLVs, GSLVs, et cetera, and it was also doing like really good work globally. So that way, that inspired me. And straight out of college, I had the opportunity to join ISRO as a scientist. And then I spent like good 6 years as a scientist at ISRO working for the space program for the country. But during the college days, always had this entrepreneurial bug. Everybody in the college wanted to build their own companies, and I was really fascinated with that idea. And also from childhood, I wanted to probably be very independent and build a company myself. But I never knew how to build a company, what can be done, how is it possible, etc. So I just went on with my passion, went to join ISRO as a scientist. And then after a few years there, after studying the space industry, I realized that space could become a very valuable business, and that India has a great kind of story for building a space business, considering that we are the most cost-effective spacefaring nation in the world, and we have all the tech required for building it, whether it's rockets or satellites, etc. There's a lot of ingredients to build a successful company out of India, especially in the space sector, is all set. And then that's when I thought, let's marry two of my passions. One is entrepreneurship, and the other is space. And then I thought, let's start a space company, in India, and that's how it started off. And I could really observe the gap in the market as well. That India needs very strong private enterprise, and then that basically was roots of starting Skyroot.
Okay. For those who don't know, ISRO is the Indian Space Research Organization. It's a public sector organization. Was it popular for IIT graduates to go work in the public sector? Sorry, could you hear me, Pawan?
Yeah, I can hear you, but my unmute is not working, so probably, so I'll stop to unmute myself probably. Yeah. So it's definitely not very popular because it doesn't pay much, but ISRO does come to IIT campus very rarely. And I was lucky that one of the years where I was in, it came probably one of the first few times to the campus. And then I was lucky enough to get recruited as well, because ISRO has a good brand, and a lot of students who are highly technically oriented, wanting to join ISRO. And there's a lot of competition as well to join there, despite it's paying less. I think that's a good sign for IITians, having an option to join ISRO. As most of the people get recruited in the campus interviews, but ISRO traditionally had an exam where you have to pass the exam, and then you have to wait for the results, and then go to the interview. It takes its own time. So no IITian would typically want to join ISRO through this route. So ISRO thought that let's go to the campus and get some bright people out there into the ISRO campuses. So that's how the journey started. And I'm lucky that one of the first few visits to ISRO campus placements was to our IIT, and then I was able to make it.
So even when you were in IIT, you knew that you wanted to work in the area of space.
Yeah. So I was very fascinated. When I was very sure that I want to work, I want to be a core mechanical engineer, and I knew that space is where I can apply my mind to it, and also like space is very fascinating. Thanks to the journey of ISRO, which I was really inspired from even during the college days.
Now, do you come from a family of entrepreneurs, or when did you catch that bug?
Yeah, so I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. I come from a very middle class family, and then one day I remember asking my dad like who are the richest people, and then my dad said that businesses businessmen are the richest people, and then I felt that and as I grew up, I saw more and more people building businesses, etc. And I really like the kind of independence it gives, the kind of impact it creates for the country. So that started early on, but I never knew that I could become an entrepreneur myself until I went into an IIT, and the kind of culture there, the entrepreneurial culture there, where everybody wanted to start their own company. Really, I think accelerated that infatuation to start a company, and then told me that it is possible to build something, and then I started really seriously thinking about starting a company. But still, straight out of college, I didn't have the guts to start a company. But still, but bug is always there at the back that saying that you need to start a company one day, and then joined ISRO, and then just went on with my passions, and then it just happened that one day got a thought of starting a space company, and then realizing the potential that India has, and then starting the company, and then now today we are the leading space startup in the country.
Okay. Once you decide to start the company, how did you raise money for it? How much did you have to raise? And would anybody fund a private space company when you actually started on that journey?
Yeah, so we started in 2018, and so at that time there was no policy for the private space sector in India. And I mean, you could design your own rocket, but you could never launch it or start do business in it because there was no policy enabling it. But still, I knew that it's a chicken and egg problem. That means like unless you have businesses coming, the policy is not going to come unless you have a policy, you cannot do business. So it's a chicken and egg problem. But I decided that let's take the leap of faith, start the company, and then when we went for fundraising, naturally, we were rejected by most of the investors, because there was no thesis for it fundamentally, there was no policy for it fundamentally, and space is a totally new sector. And then rocket science is rocket science. So when you say that you go and build rockets, then I think you're like you're for sure will be looked at with skepticism. So that all these factors added up, and then and in fact, like most of the investors rejected, but there was one, visionary entrepreneur, who's one of the leading internet entrepreneurs in the country, Mr. Mukesh Bansal, decided to fund our journey, which we raised 10 crores, or like $1.5 million, a seed fund in 2018. That's where our journey started, and then we raised like 4 rounds of capital. Till now, we raised like $68 million, the largest for an Indian private startup, and we are raising more even now. Because now the industry, now the policy has come, all the ingredients have come in, and then like we have done a launch last year, that also proved the potential of an Indian private company, and then global investors started coming in. And it became relatively much easier, to raise capital as we go further. But still, at each stage of raising capital, we had to break the glass ceiling, as the largest Series A funding, the largest Series B funding. At every stage, it was, I think very, very difficult to raise funds. But I think glad that we were able to push through that glass ceiling and able to make it happen.
So, why do you think Mr. Bansal invested in you?
In fact, I think see when there's no thesis for space sector, it's very clear that no fund would be potentially be able to put it because of their own rules and regulations and their policies, right? So the only thing is left is either corporates or entrepreneurs who can invest. And then being an entrepreneur himself, he has seen a very tough, challenging journey himself. And I know he felt that this is an opportunity, a new sector opening up. And he knew that one day India is going to open up space sector to private players, because the kind of impact it creates. And he was very bullish that these two young young boys who quit their jobs from ISRO, very stable and very well-respected jobs in the country, and started something new is also something that shows that we are very serious at what we're doing, and also the overall long-term vision which we had. It's starting with launching satellites, and then we want to upgrade ourselves to building much bigger spaceships of the future, et cetera, et cetera. I think the vision was, I think, very clear, and our career path was very clear, and we were very serious. And also we are like the first company to get funded in the space sector at that time of this standard. As a seed fund. I think it's all these ingredients add up, and he could take that leap of faith and invest in us because all these ingredients are coming together. And naturally, and what I see in fundraising over the last 5 years is that the frequency should match in an instant. So all the investors, the investment goes through either at the first meeting or it doesn't go through at all, right? So there was a clear frequency match because he's an entrepreneur himself. He's able to connect with how we are thinking, what we are doing, and he knew that he could guide us through the difficulties and take it to the next level. So it was probably, I think, one of the best investments we had.
I'm curious, what do your parents think about your decision to quit ISRO?
I think they were, they were worried because, they were naturally very proud that their son is an ISRO scientist and doing really good work, and also very well appreciated there. And then and then they felt that you have I struggled a lot, studied a lot, and got into an IT. Which is a middle class family's dream that the son gets into an IT, and then I've done it, and then they felt that you're again going back going back to the struggling days. In fact, you went to IT to struggle less, so that you get a good job and settle down there, and then and then you're quitting that good job, and then again starting from zero and starting again to struggle. So like every parents don't want their children to struggle. So they felt a little bit worried that what is he doing? Quitting a very stable job and starting something very crazy when there's a lot of red tape and when something which cannot be done in the country at that point of time. But I knew that of course this concern would be there for anybody, and then but still I persisted and said that this is something very something which I really wanted to do, and then started it, and then I think they supported a lot through the last. A 5-year entrepreneurial journey, which is, as would be like a very challenging journey. It will not be possible without the support of, parents.
Right. Tell us a little bit about the business model that your company is now adopting.
Yeah, so I mean, we launch satellites to space, and there are like several hundreds of satellite companies across the globe. And so they do satellite services. That means whether it is in communication services or in Earth observation services, et cetera, et cetera. Today, space in overall is a $400 billion business. And it's essentially enabled by these satellites, which give these space-based services. And so there are several hundreds of companies building these satellites for various applications. And all of them need a rocket for launching them to space. So that they go to orbit and then give these services to everybody. And so that's where we come in, where we provide launch services to these satellites who want to go to space and who have specific requirements to go to space. They want to say, I need to go to this orbit at this particular time of the year, et cetera, et cetera. So it's essentially a transportation service from Earth to space, very high tech, transportation service, I would say.
So how's your strategy different from SpaceX?
Yeah, so SpaceX builds very large vehicles. It's more like it's more like a train to go to space, where all the passengers, all the satellites sitting on the rocket will all be put into a single destination in space or the single orbit in space. However, a lot of modern satellites and many of the satellites are being launched in the form of constellations. That is not like one or two of them, but several hundreds of them, and sometimes thousands of them, being launched, to form a constellation, so that you get better coverage from space. And many of these satellites do require specific requirements. That means like this, it's just like we have our own individual home, we have a place we logged in. Every satellite also needs a specific location in space where they do their best. And then so a train may not work for all customers. So a cab to space is very essential. That means like the satellites which want to go to a particular orbit, particular altitude, or particular inclination. They may not want to hop onto a train which goes to a different destination. So they need to go to their own destination. So you need to book a cab service to go to space. So we're more like cab service to go to space rather than a train service to go to space.
Is it a shared cab or a cab only for one person?
Yeah. We do both. We do both carpooling and also a dedicated cab. So we can actually club in multiple satellites into the rocket and then put each of them in their distant locations. So we have the upper stage of the rocket, the stage which actually puts the satellites into orbit, has a restart capability, which is kind of rare in the market. So that it restarts, it goes to one location, restarts, goes to another location. So you can put multiple satellites into their distinct locations. So that's where cabs to space gets important, where individual satellites can go to their destined locations in space.
Is that a unique capability, or do others do it too in the world?
Yeah, there are not everybody does it, but there are few people who have the capability. And also just to see, there are less than 5 players globally who are operational in the private sector.
Okay. You told us how you're different from SpaceX. Would you care to comment on how are you similar to or different from Elon Musk?
I think very different from Elon Musk, I would say, because I'm personally a very big fan of Elon Musk and the kind of journey he has done, and then really inspired by what he has done. And I think that today probably indirectly SpaceX, without SpaceX journey, I think even a lot of governments would not have opened up their sectors to private players, because they have seen the potential of a private company in the form of SpaceX in the US, is where a lot of that gave a lot of awareness to a lot of countries and a lot of space ecosystems to open up. I think that indirectly has benefited us in a lot of way, in addition to the inspiration we got. So I think to become Elon Musk is super long way to go, but for now I would say very highly inspired by him.
Have you met him, or would you like to meet him?
I would love to meet him, but haven't met yet.
Okay. I'm sure it'll happen one of these days when he notices that there's a company in India called Skyroot that is doing some interesting things. Tell us a little bit about your value addition. I mean, do you buy the rockets? Do you make the rockets? And if you make the rockets, how do you do that? Do you have the ecosystem in India to do that?
Yeah, so we designed the rocket. We do everything from scratch. We first fundamentally, in fact, we started 5 years ago, and then it almost typically takes 5 years, full years to build an orbital grade rocket, to design and build. Many companies have taken even 10 years to build that. So we are, I think, kind of proud that we are very close to an orbital launch, soon in few months, where we are able to complete most of it in a very short period of time. And after the design is done, parallelly you start manufacturing them. And some of the manufacturing we do in-house, and very critical parts we do in-house. And the other part of manufacturing, we utilize the supply chain ecosystem available in India, which is 60-year-old. In fact, ISRO started in 1960s, and we have a very robust ecosystem supporting ISRO for the last 60 years. And then, in fact, our next launch we will be taking help from 400 vendors from India. So that kind of a large supply chain exists in India, whether it is for even buying bolts, or whether it is buying seals or buying the materials, or manufacturing parts for us. I think there are so many type of very I think a very robust ecosystem for building space systems in India, for manufacturing space systems, especially in India. And then we utilize that, we tap into that potential, and then that's also one of the reasons why we can go very fast.
Now, you're based in Hyderabad. Is that ecosystem geographically concentrated within India and some parts of the country?
Yeah, I think most of the ecosystem is around Hyderabad and Bangalore, and a little bit also in the capital of Kerala called Trivandrum. So these are the 3 places where I think there's a lot of ecosystem exists in India. And also we chose to be in Hyderabad because it has wonderful testing labs, a lot of manufacturing labs. In fact, most of the rocket is manufactured and tested in Hyderabad itself.
Okay. How competitive will you be in the satellite launching business internationally?
So, I mean, comparing apples to apples in, among people building these cabs to space, I think we will be, once operational, we will be like the lowest cost globally. And then as we go to mass production and as we, do more and more launches per year, I think we'll be like, I think phenomenally attractive, increasingly attractive prices for, any kind of satellite launch customers who wish to book a cab to space. I think that is one of the key USPs for us is having a very cost efficient, operating out of a very cost efficient ecosystem, and also the tech which is very cost efficient. The architecture of the vehicle is also very cost effective, and then the entire the launch service also becomes super cost effective. In addition to the kind of technological advantages it has.
So will you be what 10% cheaper, 50% cheaper? How much more cost competitive will you be coming out of India?
So probably anywhere from 30 to 50%. Yeah. But I think difficult to put a number until we enter the market. Yeah.
Okay. So what are the foundations of that cost effectiveness? Is it all just lower salaries, or do you do other things to give you a cost advantage?
So there are three essential ingredients for that. So the first is of course access to very cost efficient talent pool, very high tech talent pool available in the country. As you know, like India already is one of the largest IT services ecosystem in the world. Considering that we have great engineers coming out of India, in very large numbers with high aptitude. And I think and space is probably takes it to the next level where very high tech, deep tech minds in the country, which who are like super cost efficient compared to anybody else in the world. I think that talent pool, human resource pool, which is which has no comparison globally, is I think one of the great assets in reducing the cost. Number one. And number two is the technology. And as we started in 2018, we have seen how few other companies have performed, and then we were very clear that we have to push the boundaries of technology and be one of technologically most advanced rockets in the similar field. And then we push the boundaries by building an all carbon fiber rocket. The entire rocket structure is built with very light material called carbon fiber, which is like very lighter than steel and have much more strength than a typical rocket grade steel. And then we use a lot of 3D printing. We build these many of our liquid fuel engines with 3D printing, which can reduce the time, cost, multiple advantages. And then also we have like several other systems in the rocket, which is new, which is probably pushing the boundaries within their tech. All that adds to a good amount of cost savings. The tech using the kind of materials and the kind of technology architecture reduces the cost. And the third is getting access to the infrastructure at nominal prices. So when the government opened up the policy, they also committed to giving access to all the infrastructure available in the country, especially the launch pads and the testing facilities available with ISRO. I think so that available with the space agency. That's where like even today we do a lot of our testing at ISRO labs. So we need not build those laboratories from ground up, which is very expensive. So these have been built with decades of expertise. Built with a lot of over several years. We need not recreate that, and we have access to all these infrastructure and all these launch pads. In fact, the launch we have done last year, which was I think a legendary launch for the country, being till now the only ever launch by a private sector, was launched on a launch pad at the government, so that we do not focus on building a launch pad again. So that really helped us focus on just building the rocket and use the essential infrastructure available there, and then start the business.
You think that'll be available even as you scale up?
Yes, absolutely. I think it will be available as we scale up, and that's the commitment from the government. But the point is that we have to, but they have their own limitations because they have their own rocket program. They have the PSLVs, GSLVs, even the much bigger rockets coming up, etc., which are required for their own applications. So all these are coming up right now, and so they would essentially, would be an overlap of these utilization of these infrastructure. So that will affect our program. So in fact, we have plans to make ourselves completely independent, probably utilize the infrastructure in the initial phases, until we become an active player globally, and then then essentially invest in the infrastructure one by one wherever it is required, so that we don't have any overlap with the government, so that it doesn't interrupt our business operations.
Yeah. Do you have any local competitors nipping at your heels?
Yeah, so we do have one more company which is probably months away from their first launch. But I think there's probably, I think there are only two companies in India in total. And today, as we stand, we're the only private company in India who has ever launched a rocket to space, and it was done 1 year ago. And probably there may be more players also coming up, because there's a very active ecosystem, and also like a lot of demand for the satellite launch services globally. I think an Indian company would have a lot of advantages globally, and there is, I think, room for 2, 3 players in the country.
Yeah. Yeah. Financially, how will the model work? Do you break even at some point? Do you know how long that might take? How many launches? How many satellites? And so on.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll go commercial in the next year in 2024, where probably we'll be doing multiple launches, and we'll go commercial. And then probably in 3 years down the line from now, I think 3 to 4 years, depending on the number of launches, I think we should hopefully looking at the economics which we are aspiring for, I think we should break even in these years.
So what's your vision for the future? I mean, where do you see Skyroot 10 years from now?
Yeah, so our mission statement, which we are very clear from the beginning, is to open space for all. So today space is open for very few people, few companies, few countries. And I'm sure like most of us have not taken a trip to space either till now. So space is still not open for everybody, and there's long way to go. But space is just 10 minutes away. It takes a rocket just 10 minutes to go from Earth to space, while it takes me, every day 45 minutes to go to my office, which is just 7 kilometers away. So space is super close, just that it is super expensive today. And so that's where, only few applications of space are widely used, like probably the GPS, the communication services, et cetera, et cetera. But we envision a future where probably every farmer in the world would, would check their health of their farms using satellite images, and then every student in the world, would launch a satellite before graduation. Everybody has a holiday in space, and then people living in space, working in space, having a very large modules in space where people can permanently live in, and also expand beyond Earth's horizon, because we strongly believe that the next frontier for human expansion is expanding to space, and that would make Earth even better, because it has just enough population to sustain itself, and then the rest of it can go and live in space, and then form a very thriving human ecosystem in the solar system, and that's where that requires true opening space for all. And we plan to do it step by step, starting with launching satellites, and then we want to build the spaceships of the future later on.
You really are a dreamer, Pawan. That's very exciting to hear you describe what the future might look like. We have just a few minutes left. Any questions? Oh my God, I see a few hands up. In the back, we got 2 or 3 there. Or maybe, okay, start with this person. Yeah, quick.
Hi, Pawan. My name is Teja, and I'm a grad student over here. First of all, congratulations on your new headquarters, MaxQ. And my questions are this. While building the prototypes, did you face any failures, and how did you overcome with that? And did you involve in any sustainable initiatives while you were doing that? The third question is, have you used any AI in development of the prototype? Yeah, those are my questions.
Okay, that's 3 questions you got snuck in
Too
there.
many questions,
okay.
yeah.
Pawan, quick responses?
Yeah. So I think we have a very unique way concept at Skyroot. We call it FTR, first time right. So we want to see that everything we built is first time right. At least that's what we strive for. And luckily, I think that really worked very well over the last 5 years, I would say. And most of the major tests, everything was a success in the first attempt, which is super rare in the space industry. And I think I'm proud to say that I think that we were able to come close. However, we had several smaller failures, and probably maybe a much bigger failures are also going to come up in the next few years. But still, I think the sustainable practice is to build that mindset in everybody to get things first time right. Because if you don't get things first time right, I think it's a very long iterative process, and then many companies just get stuck. One mistake, and it takes one more year to rebuild stuff, and then you're lost in time. So that's where we took a very conscious decision that we do very rigorous designs, very rigorous reviews, and have that ingrained mindset in the people that you whatever complex thing is you build, even though it's the first time ever, but I think that should be the first time right, and that is ingrained in all of us, and which helps in the success rate at what we do, and also it helps in the speed at which we were able to launch. In fact, the rocket we launched last year, it just took 2 years from design to launch, which is probably super rare in the global space industry. But saying that, we are very cautious that any failure can happen anytime, which is part and parcel of the journey. And then we understand that, and that's a great learning we have. And there are several little failures. Of course, as I said, all major tests were successful, but there were a lot of little failures in the process, which we were able to iterate fast and then fix them very quickly. And there was also several learnings which have come through that. And the journey goes on, and of course there will be it will be a lot of a mix of a lot of successes and failures, and all the failures will definitely be the stepping stone for future successes as well. Yeah.
Use of AI. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah. So I mean, see, essentially, a rocket is an autonomous system. The rocket goes at a speed of 8 kilometers a second. Just absorb the kind of speed a rocket goes in putting a satellite into orbit. So it's impossible to do a remote control of a rocket at that kind of speed. So there is essentially nothing that a rocket can be controlled once there is a liftoff. And then so it's essentially an autonomous system. So we use a lot of codes which are very essential for the automation of this launch. And so AI in its fullest form is not something which we use today. But of course, we are working on a lot of AI algorithms, probably which would be used in the rockets of the future. But as of now, I think we build very cutting edge autonomous system which will work. And of course, it has good heritage in building rocket systems. And also we are exploring AI not only in the launch software, are also in the control of the autonomous control of the launcher, but also AI in designing the rocket. So today's tools, I would say, unfortunately, we have Chat GPT on our phones, but still, the rocket design software, whether it is or any system design softwares, whether it is mechanical design or electronics design or any kind of design, still are not yet fully equipped with AI. And today, probably, we want to see a future where most of the things structural analysis of a rocket part or thermal analysis gets automated. You just put the part, and then you get the results very quick. You get this thing, you get the automated design. It's a very simple problem to solve, and I'm sure a lot of people are working on this, especially the people who build such cutting edge softwares for designing systems. And all this are going to come into designing rockets probably in the next 3 to 5 years. And we want to utilize this kind of AI built in the ground design tools to build really better designs. In fact, I was really fascinated that NASA has designed one of their space system recently using AI. It has come out so beautifully. It is a super light part, which did all iterations. Probably a human would not be able to design that system in that kind of speed. And the future of rocket part design is also that. Space systems design is also that part, but it takes probably a few more years to get to that maturity.
Thank you, Pawan. I'm sorry, folks, there are still more questions from the audience, but our time is up, and I know it's very late in the day for you. So, Pawan, this has been very, very interesting and inspiring, and we are all rooting for your success. Congratulations on what you've achieved, and all the best for what lies ahead. Thank you again for sharing your insights with us. Thank you, Pawan.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ravi. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, you did ask us to show a video, but I decided better to talk to you than show the video. So we'll show the video during the lunch break. It'll be playing in the background, so you'll get to see a little more about actually the rockets taking off and so on. So we're now ready to break for lunch. I want to request, if possible, that our guests, non-Northeastern guests, if you would please go to the buffet line and start, and then our students will follow afterwards. So please, those of you who are guests of Northeastern, please go to the buffet. And in 2 minutes, we can have, after you see the clip, all of the rest of you, please go to the buffet line. So can you, Jamie, can you play the video?